Qatar Motorcycle Grand Prix will start shortly here in Doha, and the riders are ready to compete on an amazing illuminated racetrack.
MotoGP 19 had been a big hit for Milestone last year. The presentation and realism went beyond any of the other games in the series as it became a quiet contender for Racing Game of the Year. With such a large leap with last year's title, how do you build upon that? For one, there's a new core to expand on. The other portion is providing new meaningful content, which Milestone has done with MotoGP 20. A lot of improvements with the game are taking place behind the scenes. The core of last year's game does remain as it feels familiar at first. The presentation and the introductions carry over, but there is much more beneath the surface. The racing takes more of a turn towards realism in MotoGP 20. Similar to Codemasters F1 series, there is more to racing than just learning the braking and accelerating points. Players will be monitoring and managing their tires. Tires will need to be at a sufficient temperature to maximize grip. Tire degradation also needs to be managed, meaning the harder you are in the tires, the quicker you will lose handling. Players will also monitor fuel consumption. You'll be able to either fill more gas, which will slow you down, or go with less and risk running out. All of this needs to be managed throughout the race, and if you overdo it, you're going to find yourself going off the track, or you're going to find yourself running out of gas. Braking has also been improved to provide a more realistic experience. Braking too hard into a corner will cause the back end of the bike to lift. Strangely, MotoGP 20 omitted brake temperatures, which also affect handling. The focus on riding the bikes is to be as smooth as possible. Being impatient with the bike will cause it to wobble and become unstable. This again showcases the need for finding the perfect balance of stability while maintaining speed. There is also a steep learning curve, just like in years past, as you can see in this quick crash compilation. It is worth noting that the crash animations and the crash cam are really entertaining. All the management elements are a lot to consider, especially for newbies or players who don't understand the technical side of the sport. Elements such as traction control and electronic stability can be managed on the fly. Unfortunately, the game doesn't tell you these things. There's even a power option to increase performance, much like a DRS system. This actually affects fuel, but the average player wouldn't know otherwise. The series needs a tutorial or a course to show how to approach racing situations and what these technologies do. Expecting players besides the MotoGP community to know how to do this is a problem. The last overhaul of the bike physics focuses on the aerodynamics of the bike. Damages accounted for can severely affect the handling and performance of the bike. Players will get a damage indicator if they dump their bike or make contact with another rider. The bike will show scuffs and scratches, but not really any dents. Overall, Milestone did an excellent job implementing all of these physics into the game, including the braking, the handling, the fuel, and the tires. Part of what revolutionized MotoGP 19 was the neural learning AI, Anna. Anna focused more on speed the first time around with its machine learning technology. For MotoGP 20, Anna is focusing on the tire and fuel management. While the AI has greatly improved, there are still some holes. The evolution of seeing Anna work throughout a longer race is really impressive. The pack will eventually spread out, and you'll witness some riders wobble, bump, or wreck. However, some AI riders tend to be aggressive and will just bolt into corners. Anna does a much better job of recognizing the player presence this year, but gaffes every once in a while. The most noticeable issue with Anna comes with braking extremely early, like 300 yards early. It seems to be overcompensating for the strategy, and at times, the racing feels a bit off as you fight for traction, and the AI pulls away like it's nothing. Milestone has upped the visuals, and for both the PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X, there are some visual options to play with. A performance mode will provide 60 frames per second while the image quality will take a hit. If you prefer a quality mode, the experience with the frame rate was just fine on the PS4 Pro. Motion blur can also be adjusted, as I played the title with no motion blur and with the highest quality option, and the game ran smooth. The overall look is an improvement from last year, as foliage, track, and other objects get a bump up in detail. The biggest addition to MotoGP 20, outside of the physics, comes with the managerial career. players can now either create or take control of a team in any of the MotoGP leagues. MotoGP 20 returns the MotoGP League, MotoGP 2, and MotoGP 3, along with all the riders and the teams for the 2020 season. The game even includes face-scanned managers from popular teams. Players will first sign a personal manager to seek out new contracts and sponsors. Beyond that, a chief engineer will be hired, along with a data analyst. From here, the budget must be managed as the player looks to improve their team. Players will research and develop specific parts of the bike and will allocate engineers to do this. The process is fairly simple and straightforward. The season starts with a couple of weeks before the first race, so players can focus on keeping their team ahead of the pack. One issue that bothered me with the mode was allocating engineers. The game does not state if an engineer is already allocated to a project, and if selected, it doesn't provide a warning. The only way around this is getting to know names. Players can also participate in testing sessions to further improve the bikes. Managerial career is very well executed and is another aspect of the MotoGP series that I would like to see in other racing titles. Online received the same treatment of dedicated servers that Monster Energy Supercross 3 did. There's a lobby system and the ability to create private and public games along with a race director mode. In the online races I ran, I experienced no issues with connectivity and everything ran smoothly. Milestone does need to consider expanding options here since its other two games feature an open world compound. MotoGP 20 also lacks an online championship or season mode. Outside of time trials, offline championship mode, and the ability to customize the bike and rider with a ton of official apparel, the historic challenge returns with riders from mainly the past 20 years. Once again, there are just a few pre-2000 riders and only 2 classic tracks. A few more riders will be available via DLC down the road. You'll need to be really good to unlock other riders as you earn gems from placing on the podium. The conditions cannot be altered in these events. MotoGP 20 adds an underlying layer of improvement to what made last year's title so impressive. The proper integration of tire and fuel simulation add a more realistic aspect to the game. The racing feels better, and ANA has improved, but still has a ways to go. Slight visual improvements also bring the game closer to a realistic interpretation of the sport, but those also have a ways to go, and that may come with the next generation of consoles. The star is the managerial career, as this design and implementation could teach some other games a thing or two. The online experience is a bit shallow but runs excellent. MotoGP 20 also only retails for $49.99, so that's another bonus. The final result is that MotoGP 20 is definitely the most polished game in the launch series to date. Head over to hardcoregamer.com to read the full written review and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.